Welcome to The Explainer. Let's just dive right in today, because we are looking at a fundamental shift in how we interact with the digital world. We're going on a seriously eye-opening journey through our source material to uncover how technology is radically changing the very definitions of ownership, value, and scarcity. The ground is literally shifting beneath our feet right now. And those old rules of economics, well, they just don't apply anymore. But before we get into the heavy economic theory, I have a quick question for you. Have you ever bought a digital movie? Maybe on your console or your phone? Now, think about this. Are you absolutely sure you actually own it? It's a visceral question, isn't it? Because as we're about to see, the danger of digital purchasing is that you might just be paying full price for a completely temporary illusion. So here is our agenda for today's Explainer. We'll start with the digital ownership crisis, then move into console wars and scarcity, examine crypto's ideological divide, look at the evolution of DAOs, and finally wrap things up with tech's evolving future. Okay, Section 1, the digital ownership crisis. Let's look at what actually happens when buying really just means a temporary rental. Imagine this. On the morning of June 26, 2026, thousands of PlayStation Store users woke up to an email from Sony that basically read like a bad joke. Sony informed its users that on September 1st, 551 Studio Canal films and TV titles that they had purchased, not rented, would be permanently deleted from their libraries. We're talking about massive hits here, stuff like Terminator 2, Total Recall, Paddington. The reason? A licensing agreement simply ended. Some users had spent over $500 on these films, and get this, no compensation is being offered. None. And honestly, this illustrates a massive compounding problem, because this isn't an isolated incident. Think back. In 2019, Apple removed purchased iTunes movies. In 2021, Amazon Prime removed user videos. Microsoft did the exact same thing with Xbox 360 games in 2023. And now, in 2026, Sony pulls 551 films. The data here makes it incredibly, painfully clear. The digital content industry operates on a temporary licensing model. In the digital age, you do not own the file. You're merely buying a temporary, revocable license. So the absolutely crucial point here is, how do you actually protect your wallet? Based on the source material, here are a few immediate, actionable steps. First, buy physical Blu-rays for the content you truly care about, though unfortunately we all know the physical media market is slowly dying out as retailers stock fewer discs. Second, use multiple highly reliable platforms. Third, if you aren't going to rewatch it, just stream instead of buying. It's that simple. Fourth, back up your content where it is legal to do so. And finally, always read the terms and conditions. You really need to know what you're actually paying for. Moving on to Section 2, console wars and scarcity. Let's examine manufacturer demand and market psychology. The dramatic split in pre-orders we are seeing right now is very telling. Based on June 26 retail data, GTA 6 pre-orders are sitting at a whopping 75% for PlayStation 5 and just 25% for Xbox Series X and S. In raw numbers, that translates to a stunning 6-to-1 ratio in favor of PlayStation. So, how did this happen? Well, Sony's marketing genius treats GTA 6 like it's a PlayStation exclusive, and their massive 65 million unit install base is absolutely crushing Xbox's market perception. Now, Xbox claims they have record orders, but analysts actually suspect they might just be counting Game Pass Ultimate subscriptions rather than actual standalone game purchases. It proves a classic rule. When you lose mindshare, you lose market share. But guys, here is the absolute strangest story we uncovered in all this data. Why on earth would someone pay $120 for an $80 digital game? On eBay right now, scalpers are selling digital GTA 6 codes for massive markups. $120 plus $24 in shipping for an email code for a digital game with an infinite supply. Literally anyone can go to the official store and buy it for $80. There's absolutely no shortage whatsoever. So why do people fall for this? Well, behavioral economics actually gives us a really clear answer. Scalpers are just exploiting our ancient instincts. They use fear of missing out, or FOMO. They prey on a lack of consumer information. They take advantage of regional restrictions. And they exploit urgency by making completely fake limited stock claims. Look, for hundreds of thousands of years, humans had to act fast when resources were scarce. Scalpers are weaponizing that exact hardwired instinct to create fabricated scarcity in an age of digital abundance. It is wild. Let's pivot to Section 3, crypto's ideological divide, the clash over true value. To really understand this clash, you have to understand Michael Saylor's incredibly aggressive financial model. It's basically 3 steps. Step 1, borrow money. Step 2, buy Bitcoin. Step 3, repeat. Using preferred stock and low-interest bonds, his company has hoarded over 452,000 Bitcoin. That is worth around $28 billion. And hey, it works brilliantly when Bitcoin goes up. But it is some dangerous financial engineering. When Bitcoin dips, the company's STRTC preferred stock has plummeted 25% below par value. It is essentially a high-stakes house of cards. And this brings us right to the core ideological divide in this space today. You have Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse arguing that crypto's value must come from real-world utility and practical blockchain adoption. In fact, he straight up calls Saylor's method gambling with borrowed money. Then, in contrast, Michael Saylor's camp believes in leveraged accumulation at absolutely all costs, maximizing holdings to act as his ultimate digital gold reserve. Comparing these two shows us that the crypto ecosystem has really matured. It is no longer just one unified community fighting traditional finance. It now hosts some genuine, fierce ideological diversity. Section 4. The evolution of DAOs, when governance basically becomes a cash-out button. Just wrap your head around this massive number for a second. $223 million. That is the total value of the Gnosis DAO treasury. They recently passed a historic vote known as GIP 151, which allows any token holder to surrender their token for a proportional share of this cash. Because of this massive treasury, each token now entitles the holder to roughly $170. That is a very significant premium over the token's current market price of $132. This sets a completely wild precedent. Think about it. Before this vote, holding a DAO token just meant you had voting rights. You had absolutely no claim on the treasury assets themselves. Now with Gnosis DAO, your token equals voting rights plus a literal share of the assets that you can cash out at any time. This decision fundamentally changes the future of Web3. It threatens to turn long-term community-owned DAOs into short-term liquid joint stock companies. Because obviously, if everyone decides to cash out, the DAO simply dissolves. Finally, Section 5, Tech's Evolving Future. What all these trends actually mean for 2027 and beyond. Let's start with a brief but honestly historic move in gaming. Grand Blue Fantasy vs. Rising is officially launching for the Nintendo Switch 2 on September 17, 2026. This is the very first time this major franchise is coming to a Nintendo platform. Now, why does this matter to our broader economic discussion today? Because it perfectly illustrates that upcoming hardware, like the Switch 2, with its 120 Hz support, is finally being taken seriously by major fighting game studios. The market is consolidating around hardware that can actually deliver on consumer expectations. And that beautifully connects all the dots from tonight's explainer. Looking ahead, consumer anger over deleted digital libraries means we are absolutely going to see massive regulatory scrutiny on digital licenses. Meanwhile, despite the current pre-order wars we talked about, traditional consoles actually face an existential threat by 2035 as cloud gaming takes over. In Web3, the crypto market will consolidate around tokens with real utility rather than leveraged speculation. And those DAOs, they must evolve sustainable organizational models, or honestly, they'll just become temporary piggy banks. Which leaves us with this provocative final thought to close out our explainer today. When ownership becomes a revocable license, what do you actually own? We are living through a transition period where the old rules of economics no longer apply, but the new ones haven't fully formed yet either. From PlayStation libraries to Bitcoin hoarding to DAOs, you have to stay vigilant. Understand what you are actually buying, recognize when your own psychology is being exploited, and never, ever assume that digital abundance guarantees digital permanence. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning what you own, and I'll catch you next time.